Killzone is a first-person and third-person shooter series of video games exclusively for Sony Computer Entertainment's video game consoles. The main series and the PlayStation Portable installment were developed by Guerrilla Games, a subsidiary of SCE, and the PlayStation Vita installment was developed by Guerrilla Cambridge in the United Kingdom. Killzone currently consists of 6 games spanning over the PlayStation 2, PlayStation Portable, PlayStation 3, PlayStation Vita, and the PlayStation 4. The series began on the PlayStation 2 in November 2004 with Killzone, and continued on the PlayStation Portable in October 2006 with Killzone: Liberation. Killzone 2 was released for the PlayStation 3 in February 2009, and Killzone 3 was released in February 2011, also for the PlayStation 3. Killzone: Mercenary was released for the PlayStation Vita in September 2013, followed by Killzone Shadowfall in November 2013, which was a launch title for the PlayStation 4. Setting: the series is about the galactic war between the Interplanetary Strategic Alliance and the Helghast. The Killzone series follows the continuous war between the ISA and Helghast taking place on both ISA Earth colonies and the planet Helgon, the home planet of the Helghast. The series has featured 4 main protagonists: CPT Colonel Jan Templar, Sergeant Tomasev Sevchenko, Mercenary Aaron Danner, and Shadow Marshal Lucas Kellan. The main antagonist was originally Helghast Emperor Skola Viziri. His death in Killzone 2 brought about the rise of 2 new antagonists and the hopeful heirs to Viziri's throne in Killzone 3, Joe Rundstahl and Admiral Orlok. After Orlok's death and the unknown details of Stahl's death and the destruction of Helgon, now covered in Petrozite, the Helghast now live on Vector with a giant wall dividing them from the Vectans. The Black Hand, a Helghast paramilitary terrorist group, was formed under Vliko Tiran, who became an antagonist, along with Lady Hera Viziri who has inherited her father's throne. By the end of Killzone Shadowfall, it is revealed that the main antagonist is Stahl, who managed to survive the events of Killzone 3, but is dispatched by Vectan Security Agency Director Thomas Sinclair. Gameplay: Killzone, Killzone 2, Killzone 3, Killzone: Mercenary, and Killzone Shadowfall are first-person shooters. Killzone: Liberation is presented as a third-person shooter and is the only of that kind in the series to date. All games were developed by Guerrilla Games and published by Sony. Players in the series can only carry 2 different weapons at any given time. Players can either obtain ammo or swap out their current weapons with any weapon dropped by a downed foe or from those scattered around the various maps. In Killzone 3, players can carry up to 3 weapons, with the 3rd weapon spot reserved for heavy weapons. Online competitive multiplayer features up to 16 players in Killzone, 32 players in Killzone 2, 24 players in Killzone 3 and Shadowfall, and up to 8 players in Mercenary. There are various modes of multiplayer. There is an objective-based rotation mode, called Warzone, where players play all game modes one after the other until all modes have been played. Shadowfall's game modes in Warzone are slightly different. Operations is a new mode for Killzone 3 which is a cinematic mini-campaign for the multiplayer mode. Killzone 3 also features a classic Team Deathmatch mode called Guerrilla Warfare. Shadowfall also has a Team Deathmatch, simply titled Team Deathmatch. Killzone and Killzone 3 are the only games in the series to feature offline split-screen co-op for 2 players, while Killzone is the only game in the series to feature offline split-screen multiplayer in the Boatzon mode. Liberation features an online co-op campaign as well as a multiplayer mode that supports up to 6 players in ad hoc and up to 8 players on infrastructure. Shadowfall features an online co-op survival mode for up to 4 players, however, it can only be accessed by purchasing the Season Pass. Games: Main series, Killzone. Killzone was released for the PlayStation 2 in 2004. The game is set in an era of space colonization where the Helghast Empire has recovered from its defeat in the First Helgon War and launched a blitzkrieg against the outer Interplanetary Strategic Alliance colony planet Vector. Vector's orbital strategic defense platforms failed during the initial assault, allowing the Helghast to land swarms of soldiers onto the surface and making it all the more difficult for the outnumbered ISA forces. Captain Jan Templar, the main protagonist, and his squad are called back to the base for reassignment, and are promptly sent to find the ISA operative Hawkeye and the key in his possession. During the course of the game, Templar meets other characters who assist him such as Shadow Marshal Luger, a heavy weapons specialist Sergeant Rico Velasquez, and Colonel Hawker, a half-Helghast, half-human spy. Killzone 2. Killzone 2 was released for the PlayStation 3 in 2009. Killzone 2 follows the events of Killzone and Killzone Liberation, and is set entirely on the planet Helghan, the homeworld of the Helghast who invaded an interplanetary strategic alliance colony. 2 years after the Helghast assault on Vector, the ISA has launched an assault on the enemy's homeworld of Helghan. The ISA goal is to capture the Helghast leader, Skola Viseri, and bring the Helghast war machine to a halt. The main protagonists is Sergeant Tomasev Sevchenko, a battle-hardened veteran of the Special Forces unit the Legion assigned to Alpha Team, who go on a mission to take out the Helghast threat. Captain Jan Templar has been promoted to colonel and is the fleet commander of the New Sun, a cruiser airship set up in the clouds of Helghan over its capital city, Pyrrhus, preparing for a final attack. During the invasion of Helghan, Sev's unit is deployed behind enemy lines to assist the main invasion force. Tasked with securing the enemy capital of Pyrrhus, Helghan's first true city, the team quickly discovers that the Helghast are a more formidable enemy on their home planet. Not only have they adjusted to Helghan's hostile conditions, they have also harnessed the power of the freakish lightning storms that always occur on Helghan, which they can now use against the ISA. A cold, barren, unforgiving world, Helghan provides a ready defense with thick, acidic air, dust clouds, and violent surgical lightning storms. Sev discovers his squad is not just fighting enemy forces. Their fiercest opponent may be the planet itself. Killzone 3. Killzone 3 was released for the PlayStation 3 in 2011 and is the only game in the series to feature a special edition, support the PlayStation Move, and utilize 3D gaming. It immediately follows the events of Killzone 2. Viseri, the leader of the Helghast, is gone, but the war is far from over. Helghast forces have mounted a devastating counterattack, prompting the ISA evacuation of planet Helghan. As new Helghast battalions appear, armed with more powerful weapons, ISA forces find themselves outmanned, outgunned and surrounded. Two new antagonists appear, Joe Rundstahl and Admiral Orlok, who both want to become the new Autarch of Helghan. Sev returns as the protagonist with Rico and Narville. Admiral Orlok eventually becomes the new Autarch due to a circumstantial decision by the Helghan High Council. In a final confrontation between Stahl and Orlok, Stahl murders Orlok. However, the planet Helghan and Stahl's ship is nuked by Sev and his team. However, it revealed that a ship crash landed on Helghan and is greeted by two Helghan soldiers. Killzone Shadowfall. Killzone Shadowfall was released for the PlayStation 4 in November 2013. It serves as a launch title and features a new world, a new situation and a new hero. The game is set nearly 30 years after the events of Killzone 3. Vectans now live side by side with Helghans, though their portions of the city are divided by a massive wall that is known as the Wall. Helghan's citizens are placed and take refuge inside of Vector, becoming known as traitors, since they left their side of the wall, which was claimed as New Helghan. The new protagonist, Lucas Kellan, is orphaned when he and his father, Michael, are spotted with Thomas Sinclair, a shadow marshal, who attempts to lead them out of the side that was being taken by the Helghan forces after the terroricide that occurred in Killzone 3. Kellan's father is shot down by two Helghan soldiers when they are spotted, but Lucas is saved by Sinclair. 20 years later, Kellan has been brought up by Sinclair and has become the youngest shadow marshal within the Vectan Security Agency, while Sinclair has become director of the VSA. Shadow marshals are specially trained soldiers, their main mission, to preserve the peace between the Vectans and Helghast and prevent this from declining. During his travels between Vector and across the wall into New Helghast as he undertakes missions to deal with possible Helghan threats, he eventually comes to realize that New Helghan is full of civilians who are innocent. He also meets a Helghan intelligence operative, Echo, a half-breed who is Chancellor Viserys' daughter. Kellan is imprisoned and tortured when he is caught in New Helgast. Echo helps him escape to find out that Joran Stahl has a weapon design that would annihilate Vectans and half-breeds, which he considers traitors. When Kellan is finally in reach to kill Stahl, Stahl is shot in the head from behind. Kellan turns to see Sinclair, who shoots him in the arm. Sinclair gives him a small speech about the weapon and the Helgast, moments later, stating, "I tried to protect you, son." Within seconds, he plants a bullet into Kellan's brain. Sinclair is hailed a hero after killing Kellan and recovering the weapon. Echo, who survived the impact of the crash, sneaks into Vector and strategically places herself 100 feet across from the VSA headquarters, where Sinclair is giving a speech, and assassinates him by shooting him in the head, preventing another war. Other games: Killzone, Liberation. Killzone, Liberation was released for the PlayStation Portable in 2006. In Killzone, Liberation, 2 months after the events of Killzone, the Helgast have been dealt a hefty blow from the last game, but the war is far from over. The enemy still controls large parts of the planet Vector, and though the ISA armies are fighting hard, they are losing ground. The rules of war have been cast aside with the sadistic Helgast general, Armin Metrarch, employed by the Helgast Emperor Skola Viseri to use brutal measures in order to seize the initiative and strengthen his position further. Jan Templar returns as the main protagonists on a cover operation to save hostages captured by Metrarch, while ISA troops continue the fight for liberty. There are 5 chapters with 4 levels in which players eliminate the Helgast resistance. Killzone, Mercenary. Killzone, Mercenary was released for the PlayStation Vita in 2013. In the game, players assume the role of a mercenary who fights alongside either the ISA or Helgast forces depending on which team hires them. Killzone Trilogy. Killzone Trilogy is a collection of Killzone, Killzone 2, and Killzone 3 for the PlayStation 3 under Sony's PlayStation Collections line. The original Killzone has been remastered in HD to support 720p resolution and trophies. The collection also includes all DLC maps for Killzone 2 and Killzone 3. It was released on October 23, 2012 in North America and October 24, 2012 in Europe. Reception. The first Killzone received mixed to positive reviews from magazines and websites. PSM stated that Killzone is graphically stunning and hits the mark in so many ways, it's baffling. They promised us we'd experience future war, and we have. And come away shaking. Other reviewers cited technical problems with Killzone, including inconsistent AI, occasional bugs, frame rate issues, distracting graphical glitches, repetition of the same voices, short draw distance, and an awkward control system. Critics also complained about the gameplay, with IGN labeling it underwhelming and mediocre, and Interliquid Sky stating that it needs more refinement. Sarcastic Gamers, How to Kill a Brand criticized Killzone, saying it didn't deserve a sequel. Killzone, Liberation received IGN's award for Best PSP Offline Multiplayer Game of 2006. Killzone 2 received critical acclaim upon release with a game ranking score of 90.56%, and a Metacritic score of 91/100. Killzone 3 received positive reviews upon release with a game ranking score of 86.38%, and a Metacritic score of 84/100. The first English review of the game was published by PlayStation Official Magazine, which gave the game a 9/10. The review stated, on a visual level, as a 3D breakthrough, this feels like a watershed moment in a revolution affecting all of gaming. The review also stated on gameplay terms, Black Ops is the only, first-person shooter on PlayStation 3 that can match this. The voice acting, however, was criticized as not being perfect, thus lacking emotive punch, and the reason for not receiving a perfect 10/10. References. External links. Official website, Killzone Command Center, Killzone Trilogy launch and trailer.